Recently, a respiratory virus has been spreading rapidly across mainland China. According to the latest report from China's Disease Control Center, between November 10th and 16th, there were 955 flu-like outbreaks reported in just 1 week, and hospitals are overflowing with patients. In Henan, a 3-year-old boy was diagnosed with a common cold after developing a fever on November 10th. Tragically, he passed away less than a day later. The hospital later updated the diagnosis to severe infection combined with H1N1 flu, but the family suspects that a misdiagnosis led to a delay in treatment. In Zhejiang, a 12-year-old girl developed white lung after just 1 day of fever. Meanwhile, a 39-year-old woman from Hangzhou, who was diagnosed with the flu, struggled for 3 days before being rushed to the hospital with multiple areas of her lungs severely affected. In Heilongjiang, some locals are reporting that even county-level hospitals can't test for H1N1 flu, and many patients are toughing it out until their condition worsens and they're forced to receive IV treatment. Parents in Inner Mongolia, the northeast, and northern China are reporting large numbers of students falling ill with symptoms like fever and coughing. One parent said, after one classmate got a fever, in less than 2 days, the whole row of students was sick. Some kindergarten classes have seen up to a third of the kids missing due to illness, as the infection spreads rapidly. Parents are also saying pediatric departments are overcrowded, with patients waiting over 3 hours for treatment. The number of children needing IV fluids has increased 3 to 5 times the usual volume at some hospitals. Many netizens are pointing out that the symptoms are very similar to those of COVID-19. One commenter said, "The symptoms are just like COVID, just with a different name." On social media, people are sharing cases of both children and adults dying from the infection, although the official death toll has not been released. In Tangshan, Hebei, a villager reported multiple deaths in the village since October, mostly people in their 40s and 50s, but some even in their 30s. Some died from white lung, while others suffered sudden heart attacks or strokes. In Qingdao, 4 or 5 of his peers have passed away, some from strokes, others from heart problems, or just rapid deterioration of illness. He said, "I never used to think about it, but now when someone dies, it's no surprise." A resident from Xi'an mentioned, "There were diseases you only saw in people in their 50s or 60s, now even young people can't handle it." The local hospital has recently seen a surge in young patients with much more complicated conditions. In Hong Kong, since school started in September, there have been 14 severe flu cases in children, one of which was fatal. The children range from 2 to 17 years old. Officials have pointed out that the H3N2 virus has not caused a major outbreak in China for the past 2 years, so the general public lacks immunity. As a result, the current flu wave is spreading rapidly and widely. The peak of this flu season could occur from mid to late December, lasting until early January. Additionally, other viruses like rhinovirus, respiratory syncytial virus, and enteroviruses are also active. Although the China CDC emphasizes that H3N2 is the dominant strain, many netizens remain skeptical of the official classification, questioning why the term COVID-19 has been avoided in the government's discussions. The public is particularly concerned that the current outbreak may be more severe than the government is admitting. In addition to the rapidly spreading flu, another major headline lately is the mass exodus of homebuyers from Hegang. Hegang, a city in Heilongjiang province known for its super cheap housing, is once again making headlines. This time, though, the focus isn't on the bargain prices, but on the people leaving in droves. Back in 2019, a viral live stream showing how you could buy a house for just 40,000 yuan made this remote city famous. A large number of young people, drawn by the dream of affordable housing, flocked to Hegang, hoping to own a home for a fraction of the cost of major cities. But 6 years later, the initial excitement is fading, and at least half of those who moved to Hegang are now leaving. The gap between their dreams and the harsh reality of life in the city has left many struggling. The initial attraction was Hegang's housing prices, which were well below the national average. You could buy an entire home for just 40 or 50,000 yuan, and some even got old apartments for as little as 20,000 yuan. For young people who had been renting in expensive first-tier cities, Hegang seemed like a dream come true, a way to own a home while living cheaply. This was especially appealing to remote workers and freelancers. But as the novelty wore off, many residents discovered that the low housing costs were just a small part of the overall expenses. What really drained people's wallets were hidden costs for everyday living. Hegang's long, harsh winters come with high heating costs. The local heating fee is 27.5 yuan per square meter, so even a small 58 square meter apartment can cost over 1,600 yuan just to heat for the winter. For people on unstable online jobs, this was a tough burden. To make matters worse, some heating companies, struggling financially, occasionally turn off the heat, forcing residents to rely on electric heaters. This can add nearly 1,000 yuan a month in electricity bills. Apart from high heating and electricity bills, many of these super cheap properties also have major issues. Rooftops in old apartment buildings leak, walls peel, and plumbing is often outdated. Some buyers who paid 15,000 yuan for a house ended up spending over 30,000 yuan on basic repairs. Many newcomers thought they could just move in and live, only to find that the repair costs far exceeded their expectations. The constant problems with drafts, leaks, and aging pipes, especially in winter, made life in Hegang feel nothing like the ideal small northern city they had imagined. The deeper issue lies in opportunity costs. Hegang's economy is relatively one-dimensional, with few local job opportunities. For those relying on online income, losing their job or seeing their income drop meant there was no alternative work nearby. Many people who moved there thinking they could always find another job found themselves trapped in a place where reemployment was nearly impossible. As a result, many people are stuck in a situation of financial stress and no prospects, leaving them no choice but to go back home. Xiao Huang, a man from Guangdong, lived in Hegang for a year before returning to the south. He admitted that the winter heating and maintenance costs were just too much, far exceeding what he had expected. Xiaoyang and his wife from Hunan hung on for 2 years but couldn't adapt to the environment, eventually leaving with their child. The 40,000 yuan house they bought is now listed online for 20,000 yuan, but it still hasn't sold. Despite the cheap price, the reality of a shrinking population and fewer buyers has made reselling the property difficult. Some people even said, in Hegang, the house isn't an asset, it's a burden. Once seen as a way to escape the pressures of big cities, the cheap house dream has turned into a misguided adventure for many who are now leaving. 6 years later, Hegang is still a quiet northeastern town, but the people who came for cheap housing have had mixed results. Some have found their ideal lifestyle, while others' dreams were shattered by the cold winter, and some are frantically putting up urgent sale signs on the icy streets before they leave. In addition to the flu outbreak, another shocking story has emerged from Henan, where a man's dream wedding turned into a nightmare when he discovered that all his wedding guests were actors. A man from Henan, Mr. Ran, remembers the excitement he felt on his wedding day, thinking it was the start of a new chapter in his life. He had saved up over 300,000 yuan from years of hard work to pay for the engagement gifts, wedding venue, food, and dresses. Every penny was invested in his future. When his 41-year-old bride, Zhao, stood before him, smiling warmly and gracefully, she seemed like the perfect woman, one he trusted to spend his life with. What Mr. Ran didn't know was that none of the relatives at the wedding actually knew Zhao. Those who drank with him, raised toasts, and offered well wishes were all paid actors. The woman he believed to be his bride was actually a professional bride who had played the same role many times before. This case, along with another in Hubei, has brought the issue of professional marriage fraud and the chaos in the marriage market back into the spotlight. According to reports, Mr. Ran was introduced to Zhao through a matchmaker. Zhao was well-spoken and emphasized her age and desire for marriage, making her seem sincere. She quickly gained the trust of Mr. Ran and his family. Soon after, they began planning the wedding. Zhao suggested that her side of the family handle the wedding arrangements, citing the large number of relatives and available help. Mr. Ran was a bit surprised but didn't object, thinking it would simplify the process. Mr. Ran spent over 300,000 yuan on the dowry, food, and other wedding expenses. On the wedding day, the atmosphere was lively, and the relatives took turns drinking and offering congratulations. Zhao acted with grace and won praise. Mr. Ran's family thought everything was perfect and believed that the next chapter of their lives had begun. However, shortly after the wedding, Zhao's attitude changed abruptly. She complained about differences in lifestyle, the family atmosphere, and financial difficulties. Mr. Ran tried to reconcile, but Zhao became increasingly distant and eventually filed for divorce, suggesting additional compensation. Confused and under pressure, Mr. Ran began to suspect that something was off. When he tried to contact the family members who attended the wedding, all the phone numbers were disconnected. Soon after, Zhao herself completely vanished. Mr. Ran filed a police report, and an investigation revealed that Zhao was not new to this type of fraud. She was a seasoned, professional bride who had used the same scam on at least 5 other men. The amounts she swindled ranged from 300 to 500,000 yuan per case, totaling over 1.7 million yuan. Her scam was simple and repetitive: establish a relationship, quickly advance the marriage, use actors to play the family at the wedding, collect the dowry, create conflicts after the wedding, and then disappear through divorce. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to marriage fraud. In recent news, another marriage fraud case has been tried in Suzhou, Hubei. The victim, Mr. Shen, married his girlfriend, Ms. Yin, in 2024. He had paid a dowry of 148,000 yuan, only to discover that the pregnancy proof, dowry items, family members, and even Yin's identity were all fake. According to the indictment, Mr. Shin met Yin on an online platform in 2022. Early in their relationship, Yin falsely claimed to be pregnant and bought 2 fake ultrasound reports to quickly move the relationship forward. She also told him her father was a high-ranking official and that her family was wealthy, presenting a convincing background for marriage. In early 2023, Yin claimed to have had a miscarriage, but continued the relationship with Mr. Shen. Her acting skills were so convincing that she could be nominated for an Oscar. She arranged for an actor to play her father and meet Mr. Shen's parents. Later, when the relationship supposedly faced issues, she hired a relationship coach to act as her brother to mediate, and even had someone impersonate her mother. When Mr. Shen suggested they go to register their marriage, Yin claimed she couldn't register locally because she had problems with a cosmetic surgery clinic in the past. However, she said her father had connections in Qingdao, and they could register there after the wedding. So, in May 2024, they held the wedding in Suzhou, and Yin's supposed father attended the banquet, making the wedding appear grand and legitimate. After the wedding, Yin asked to return to Qingdao with the dowry and the other gifts, and had 106,400 yuan transferred to her bank account. In mid-May 2024, Mr. Shen and Yin, the pair traveled to Qingdao, where they stayed in a villa that Yin claimed belonged to her family. Mr. Shen was eager to meet his new mother-in-law, but Yin said it wasn't convenient due to family issues. After a few days, Yin gave him a bank deposit slip for 460,000 yuan, a 100-gram gold bar, and the keys to a Mercedes-Benz, which made Mr. Shen feel reassured and relieved of his doubts. However, a few days after returning to Suzhou, Yin threw a tantrum and insisted on returning to Qingdao. Mr. Shen agreed, but only if she returned the dowry. That's when the so-called mother-in-law called and told Yin to bring the dowry, but leave the car, bank slip, and gold bar as collateral. Shortly after the phone call, Yin disappeared without warning. Suspicious of the situation, Mr. Shen traced the car's license plate and discovered that the car was rented. He also took the gold bar to a pawn shop, where it was revealed to be fake. When scratched, it revealed white filler material inside. The so-called bank deposit slip was also confirmed to be a forgery. After reporting the fraud to the police, Mr. Shen learned that the pregnancy reports, household registration book, and even Yin's name were all fabricated. Moreover, Yin was already married and 9 years older than him. Yin is now facing charges of bigamy and fraud. The court has started proceedings, but a verdict has not yet been reached. In China, many young people face enormous pressure to pay high dowries and get married, and many families, fearing their children might remain single, compromise on their expectations. Once they think they found the right person, they can easily be swept away by sweet words and promises. Shen later admitted that he had some doubts along the way, but was swept up in the joy of finally finding someone who wanted to marry him. Now, looking back, he sees all the little signs that should have raised alarms. He says, "She acted so convincingly." Perhaps it was because she seemed so real that the betrayal hurt so much. November 22nd, a large-scale protest broke out in Guiyang City, Guizhou Province. Hundreds of villagers, some with bare hands and others holding hoes, fought overnight with the vice-county head and police in an effort to protect their ancestral tombs. In the end, the vice-county head was forced to flee. According to reports from the social media account, Yesterday Big Cat, villagers gathered spontaneously in several villages. Some were unarmed, while others held sticks and hoes to guard the tombs. One person shouted, "If the Communist Party wants to dig up our ancestral tombs, they should start with Xi Jinping's family tomb." The report stated that Shifeng County had announced earlier this year that it would fully implement a mandatory cremation after death policy, citing unified management as the reason. However, villagers expressed that many nearby areas had adjusted the policy to voluntary cremation after public outcry, but Shifeng County continued to push forward with the mandatory policy, and when the policy was explained, no clear legal basis could be provided. Reports indicated that on November 22nd, government officials from Shudong town planned to forcibly exhume a body that had already been buried. Upon hearing this, local villagers quickly gathered at the scene. At the site, hundreds of villagers surrounded the tomb with sticks, stating that they would fight to the death to stop the exhumation if the government attempted to dig up the body. Villagers also continuously played recordings, demanding the cancellation of the forced cremation policy. By late night, many villagers were still guarding the tomb, while the government personnel who had previously threatened to come to the village did not take action, possibly due to the fierce resistance from the villagers. Later that evening, a more intense confrontation broke out in Shuitou village, just a few kilometers from Shudong town. According to several videos filmed by villagers, the vice county head, Chang Yong, arrived at the village and demanded that a family hand over a recently buried body. During the incident, a physical altercation seemingly took place between Chang Yong and the deceased family members. Villagers reported hearing that the deceased sister was pushed during the confrontation, which ignited their anger. What started as a few dozen onlookers quickly escalated. Within half an hour of the fight, over 100 villagers had arrived to support the family. Some were unarmed, others brought their phones and sticks. They surrounded the vice county head and several government officials and police officers, leading to a series of clashes. During this time, Chang Yong promised to cover all medical expenses for those injured, but this did not quell the villagers' anger. The clashes continued intermittently until early morning. Eventually, amid the chaos, a villager shouted, "He's run away! He's run away!" It turns out that Chang Yong escaped the scene through a side road during the commotion. Many netizens from other regions left comments supporting the villagers. Since they want to force cremation, party members should take the lead, starting with their own ancestors' graves. In rural China, burial is a tradition that has lasted for centuries, but since the Communist Party took over in 1949, they've pushed for cremation under various pretexts. Many rural families, after cremating their deceased relatives, still buy a coffin to rebury the ashes because there's no place to store urns in the village. Villagers say cremation costs money, and buying a coffin costs more. The poor can't even rest in peace when they die. Many villagers stated that they're not opposed to cremation itself, but to the forced nature of it. One person said, "If it were voluntary, who would make such a fuss? If they forcibly dug up our ancestral tombs, that's a matter of life and death." Another villager shouted, "If you dare dig, let's see if we don't fight you to the end." For them, this wasn't just an attack on tradition. It was a direct challenge to their ancestors and family dignity. At the time of writing, the two incidents are still ongoing in the local area, with many surrounding netizens stating that they would come to support the villagers' resistance. For many villagers, the protest is not just about support, but about defending tradition and preserving the dignity of their ancestors. A budget travel blogger known for traveling around China in a modified tricycle camper van recently became the subject of a viral video. Originally intending to document the landscapes and people, he nearly didn't make it out alive during a visit to a remote town in Fujian province. In the video, he recalls being lured by a stranger and drinking what he suspected was drugged alcohol, causing his heart to race uncontrollably. At midnight, with his condition rapidly worsening, he drove through dense fog to escape, feeling as though he was racing against death. After escaping, he realized that this was just one of the two strange traps he had narrowly avoided. His story shocked the internet, reigniting public concerns about missing persons, abductions, and travel safety. The blogger, who goes by the name Wang An Khan, documents his daily travels on YouTube under the account Wang An Kang's Travels. He's been traveling solo across more than 10 provinces in a modified tricycle van, capturing the landscapes, local stories, and the realities of budget travel. Wang Ankang shared that he initially thought the biggest challenges on his journey would be the weather and loneliness, but he soon realized that the real danger came from people. In January 2025, he had an unsettling encounter in a remote town in Nanping City, Fujian, which still haunts him. On that day, after napping in his van and playing on his phone, a man who introduced himself as San Ge approached him on an electric scooter. The man greeted him warmly, chatted about making videos and road trips, and quickly became quite familiar. Wang initially didn't intend to engage, but felt awkward declining when the man repeatedly invited him to drink tea at his guest house. The man's persistent and courteous behavior made it hard for Wang to refuse. San Ge then led him to a place called Longmen Inn, asking him to park his van in a small grove behind the guest house and enter through the back door. The two spent the entire afternoon drinking tea, and Sang-ge continuously urged him to stay a few days, preparing food. That evening, the man served pig lungs and a bottle of alcohol, persistently convincing him to drink more. Wang said he only had a small amount, but immediately felt his heart race and dizziness set in. Thinking it was just fatigue, he returned to his van to rest. Around midnight, Wang was awoken by his phone vibrating. Sang-ge sent a text saying he had remembered something important to discuss with him and invited Wang to come back for more drinks. Wang, feeling uneasy, reluctantly agreed but refused to drink anything else. During this time, Sang-ge made video calls to two men, one bald and another a young guy. They spoke in the Hakka language, which Wang couldn't understand. What unnerved him was that each time Sang-ge would turn the camera towards him, making him greet the men on the other end. Wang was offered a room key by Sang-ge and encouraged to go to a designated room to shower and stay, claiming that it would be more comfortable there. However, Wang declined, not wanting to take advantage of the man's hospitality. He returned to his van. Reflecting afterward, he said that if he had gone into that room that night, he might not have come out alive. Late at night, Wang felt his physical condition rapidly deteriorate. He started a live stream, intending to tell his viewers about his strange condition, but within a few minutes, he became so weak that he couldn't maintain his balance. He struggled to keep his consciousness, and at midnight he drove his tricycle through the thick fog, escaping from the guest house. He said, "It felt like racing against death." After leaving, Wang briefly considered calling an ambulance, but canceled the idea due to concerns about the cost. He instead went to a local hospital and reported the incident to the police. According to his account, the doctor only took his blood pressure and pulse without testing for drugs or performing other checks. The police arrived but did not file a report or investigate Sang-ge. Wang described the atmosphere of the town as unsettling, so he decided to leave immediately. The next day, he texted Sang-ge asking if he had spiked the food or drink. Sang-ge replied cryptically, "Yesterday's pig lungs tasted even better." This response reignited Wang's panic. He eventually spent over 20 days recovering in a nearby village. However, the danger didn't end there. Months later, Wang encountered nearly the same scenario in Guangxi province. A man invited him for barbecue, and not long after they sat down, two strangers appeared. Their behavior was vague, and when Wang tried to leave, he was dragged back. He was forced to show the machete he had with him, which made the men retreat. He noted that he was fortunate to be tall and strong, saying that if he had been smaller, he likely would have been captured. After these two close calls, Wang started to notice unusual patterns in his travels. In his videos, he mentioned hearing rumors of cross-border scam zones and human trafficking. He said that in recent years, telecom fraud activities have shifted from Myanmar to Cambodia, with many criminals using Guangxi's coastal waters to transport victims to Cambodia. He warned other travelers to stay vigilant. Wang's story also brings to mind another blogger from a few years ago. Wang Xiangjun once warned young people not to travel alone in certain areas, mentioning that he had found large amounts of buried identity cards and warning about possible black shops in the Motuo area. Wang Xiangjun tragically passed away in 2020 while filming, and the circumstances surrounding his death sparked widespread discussion. Recently, the number of missing people, both young and adult in China, has surged. Citizens have been compiling missing persons reports on platforms like Douyin, with over 100 people reported missing between November 1st and 10th, 2025. These are mostly teenagers and some adults in their 30s and 40s. On November 19th, three 12-year-old students from Zhaoren Middle School in Xiangyang, Shanxi Province went missing. Despite extensive surveillance coverage across urban and rural China, disappearances continue to occur on a daily basis. In some areas, residents have recorded suspicious vans repeatedly appearing on streets, claiming that people are being forcibly dragged into vehicles at night, only to vanish without a trace. Earlier in 2023, identity cards, bank cards, and household registers were found scattered in a garbage dump. Police responded by saying they were investigating, but no further updates were released. In Hubei province, a fisherman found a bag containing identity cards and handed it to the police, but no progress has been reported. In this context, Wang Ankang's experience has sparked a huge reaction, not just because of the danger he faced, but because his encounter taps into a common fear shared by many in China under the Communist Party's regime. Has the CCP run out of ideas against Japan? Now they're pressuring Hong Kong. The Chinese Communist Party has always found various ways to control its own people, but recently, when it comes to dealing with Japan, it seems they're running out of options. Unable to make progress against Japan, they've turned to pressuring Hong Kong. Several sources have told Kyodo News that the Hong Kong Investment Promotion Agency had planned to hold a Japan-Hong Kong business exchange event on November 18th. Japanese consulate staff had already arranged their schedules to attend the event alongside Hong Kong business leaders and Japanese company representatives. However, just before the event, the Hong Kong government unexpectedly issued an unusual request. Japanese consulate representatives were not allowed to attend. This sudden and cold directive threw the event organizers into an awkward position. The Japanese side couldn't understand the reason, while the Hong Kong side stood firm. In the end, the event had to be postponed. Observers familiar with Hong Kong's diplomatic approach noted that this was not a mere technical adjustment, but a clear political message. Whether you come or not depends on how Beijing wants Hong Kong to position itself. Coincidentally, in the same week, another diplomatic arrangement was quietly cancelled. A senior Hong Kong official in charge of economic policy had been scheduled to meet with the Japanese consul general in Hong Kong. This one was set for early December. These types of meetings had been regularly held over the years and were considered a basic part of maintaining stable economic and trade relations. However, sources confirmed that the Hong Kong government suddenly informed Japan that the meeting was cancelled. No alternative arrangement was offered, and no explanation was given. For observers who have long tracked Hong Kong-Japan relations, the speed with which this understanding disappeared is striking. Especially this year, Hong Kong's attitude towards Japan has increasingly aligned with Beijing's stance. Earlier this year, the Hong Kong government even allowed the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs in publicly advising citizens to temporarily avoid traveling to Japan. Given that Japan accounts for about one-third of Hong Kong's outbound tourists, this was a surprising move, highlighting that Hong Kong has lost the diplomatic independence it once had. What's more interesting is that these actions are not isolated incidents, but a part of a chain reaction. In 2012, the nationalization of the Senkaku Islands caused a sharp decline in China-Japan relations, but at that time, Hong Kong was still able to maintain some level of official exchanges. However, since the implementation of the national security law in 2020, Hong Kong's foreign attitude has rapidly been influenced by Beijing, and any country involved in sensitive issues may see its interactions with Hong Kong affected by Beijing's emotions. Now, this diplomatic coldness is starting to spill over from the political level into business. Japan is one of the largest sources of foreign investment in Hong Kong, with thousands of Japanese companies operating there across finance, technology, retail, and food services. If even basic exchange activities are being cancelled due to political wins, many in the business community worry that this could be the beginning of a comprehensive cooling in Hong Kong-Japan relations. A source familiar with the Hong Kong government's operations bluntly stated, Hong Kong is no longer able to decide its own diplomatic stance.